Are you listening? This ain't no quiet thing. We're screaming out our lungs. Hey, are you listening? Hey, are you there? Hey, are you listening? Or do you just not care?
Well, hello, friends, and welcome to Hey, Are You Listening? This is a podcast exploring the past, present, and future of Christian music. My name is Joel, and I'm here with my good friend Brandon, and we connected over a mutual love of some particular artists, but have pretty different tastes when it comes to things as well. And so for us, this is a fun journey of getting to experience some new things together while sometimes having some friends along for the ride as well. Brandon, how's it going today?
I'm doing really well today. How are you doing, Joel?
I think I'm good. It's a beautiful day. We're recording this on a holiday for us, so we get some time off from our normal things. Obviously, podcasting, we're here because we're locked into this. We want to be faithful to a new episode every week coming out. But it's nice as well just to have some time to rest and spend time with the family. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, today's going to be a little bit of a different episode for us because we're not covering a specific album, but wanted to kind of be able to share a little bit of our own stories and how Christian music kind of entered into our world. Just kind of giving a peek behind the curtains, right? For people to know a little bit about who we are. But before we start to dig into that, let's figure out what's going on in the news.
What's in the news? What's in the news?
All right, so what's been going on in the world of Christian music? Brandon, have you seen the new Superman movie?
I haven't.
So one, I love it, and I think you should check it out. It's probably my favorite superhero movie that I've seen in like a long time.
I've heard a lot. I was never a big Superman fan, but from what I've seen, I feel like this is the first one that I want to give a chance to.
Yeah, it's I know Superman's kind of like the generic superhero, but it's got a ton of heart to it, which is one thing that I really loved, and yeah, so, but it's interesting. I was watching it, and there's a moment in this movie where Clark, Superman, is talking to Lois, and they're talking about he's trying to like give off this image that he's not like this straight-laced guy or whatever, and so he talks about how he listens to punk rock, and she's like, "You don't listen to punk rock," and so he starts to like name drop so that he can get some street cred when it comes to music. And one of the bands that he talks about is POD. And so he like drops in this movie, we find out that Superman is a POD fan, which is kind of an interesting thing, like in a DC movie to like reveal breaking Superman POD fan. I don't know. How does that make you feel?
I used to love, and I love now whenever I see like Christian music or like just those random artists get used and stuff.
Yeah.
There was a I don't know if you've ever watched like any of the Breaking Bad universe type stuff, but there's a movie based on one of the characters. He's going to like visit this kind of the clubhouse of some bad guys, and when they walk in, Country Gentleman is playing by Family Force 5. It's just like such a like random thing to be like, these bad guys are they Family Force 5 fans? Is it just like a playlist that's on? But like for me it was just, oh, that's so cool that Family Force 5 is getting this like cameo in the film.
Yeah.
So I think I've listened to POD like very little. So like I think it's cool to hear that, but like if they like would have name dropped like House of Heroes or like John Rubin, I would have gone today to go watch the Superman movie. To me, little stuff like that's so cool, and I have enjoyed seeing online just the people diving into like, what does this mean then for Superman? Do you think he listened to this one? Do you think he went to this concert? And
Right.
so I think stuff like that is just like, it's such a fun little like nod to the audience.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder a little bit. I mean, having a band as a soundtrack is like one thing because that happens a lot, but the mention is interesting, and so it makes me wonder for like James Gunn, the director, like how maybe all of this is part of his history, and obviously, POD was. They got to a pretty mainstream point
Yeah.
where it's not just Christians that are listening to them, but yeah, it does kind of make you wonder like what's going on behind the scenes with
Yeah.
that. So interesting stuff. Also, a thing that's been interesting to watch is this whole thing with Forrest Frank about the broken back and him writing songs out of that, like the song Lemonade, from his bed while that's going on. Have you followed that at all?
I I I think I've been in the like the bubble of it from just our grade schoolers at church talking about it.
Yeah.
So really it's just been me like hearing them talk about it. So I don't know how much of a reliable source like 7 and 9 year olds are.
Yeah, I don't know either. The interesting thing that's kind of come out of it though is to see how like other Christian artists are engaging with it, and they're all like there are several of them that have done their own like Weird Al versions of what's happened with Forrest Frank, where like, oh, I broke my pinky, gonna lay in bed and write a song. So it's kind of interesting because it's like a little bit of parody, but like you can't like take we're like sort of making fun of this out
Yeah.
of that. And so the dialogue back and forth between like a Forrest Frank and a Corey Asbury or whatever in this has been really interesting to see them kind of come along on the same page. And they're I think definitely from like different generations too, but I think the fun thing about it is just to see how quickly like we can all realize that we're all broken people, whether it's
Yeah.
like a broken back or whatever it may be. And so maybe we jump too quickly to respond to something.
Yeah.
And that we just need to be able to give time and grace and kind words to each other. And I think that's what I've seen come out of it, which has been kind of encouraging to see happen through it. So yeah, that's been interesting to watch. Well, for you though, what have you been listening to lately?
So I went on a trip to Charlotte recently, and I like making a playlist whenever I go on a trip. And I had a couple of different ideas, but then I Googled prompts, and one was an ABC playlist where it's like you go through like a song that starts with an A, song that starts with a B, and and so it was really cool getting to dig through that because it ended up becoming this playlist of stuff that I'm listening to now and then stuff that I like used to listen to because I just went on like my like Apple Music, but it's not the one you pay for. So I can Apple Library.
Yeah.
And so I just started like kind of searching by like alphabetical. So I would plug in like maybe like a C and then like a E or whatever, and it was cool because it just kind of like I said just became very random. And after the fact, I would find songs and go, "Oh my gosh, why did I not use that like for like the A like song and all?"
Yeah.
And but yeah, so I've enjoyed. So it's just 26 songs that span a here's something I listened to 20 years ago. Here's something I'm listening to now. So yeah, that's pretty much what's just been on repeat. Is just yep. Let's just see what's gonna show up now.
That's cool. I like that idea a lot. I'll have to think through that. Yeah, there's been an artist for me that I've listened to a lot over the last year, more kind of intently than ever before. His name is Tyson Motzenbacher. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
Yeah, so he's currently on Tooth and Nail Records, which is interesting, and I think where I kind of came across him to begin with. But he's got a few records out there. He's got a new one that he's working on right now that he's released a couple of songs from, and his music's really fascinating in a lot of ways because every record that he's put out has been very different. but it all sounds like him at the same time, and
Yeah.
everything's done with like a lot of thought and care. But I think he's like been on tour or done a bunch of dates with like John Foreman, Switchfoot lately.
Okay.
But he's great. I think you would like his stuff a lot. So he's got a new one that's coming out pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that one's gonna turn out. All right, so today we wanted to get to share with you guys just a little bit of our stories, so that you could get to know us a little better. As hosts, we tend, when we have guests on, we'll be asking the questions. How did Christian music enter into your life and your story? And so we kind of wanted to give a little bit of that for ourselves today, so that you could get to know us a little bit. And just to kind of set that up. So Brandon, you and I met because we both work at the same church, and so I've been a part of this church for a long time, and you and your wife Jordan started coming here, and so we got to know each other through that. But there's a lot of history before that that kind of brings us to where we are. So, kind of backing up from like the idea of Christian music, how did just you kind of fall in love with music for the first time? Where did music enter in your story?
Music, for my family, music is a huge part of just everyone's life. And it wasn't like a musician part. My granddad, he's really the only musician I can think of. And he's like been a drummer in bands. So growing up, it was cool having like that granddad that's like, oh,
That's
I have
awesome.
like the cool edgy like granddad that's works on cars and plays drums in bands.
I love that.
And so, but like my dad, every time we're in the car, it was listening to, a mix of like classic rock and then like modern, like kind of the modern station. And then for, like my granddad, his body shop, it was the same way. Like he had one of those like 10 disc changers or whatever. And so like you would have like a gospel album and then you'd have like Fergie playing or, so like it was such a like weird mix. But it was just everyone like listened to music. Like it was even my mom, like if she, and I think that's why I have to make a playlist. Like if I'm doing anything in the house, is that she always had music playing. So like if she's cleaning in the house, we have music playing. If we're just like hanging out, there's music playing. So music was something that was like just a huge part of like you have to have it like on like around. How about for you?
Yeah, I think really similar. Like, I feel like music was kind of a soundtrack to my life growing up, in a lot of ways, where I felt like there was always something on in the background. And that's become really important for me too with my family. Is not that I don't love quiet moments, because I do, but you can have quiet moments with quiet music too.
Yeah.
So I've tried to create like a certain number of playlists that I remember riding in the car Thanksgiving with my family, and my dad had our Christmas mixtape, and it was like that was the first moment when we got to listen to it, like on the way back from Thanksgiving. It's like
That's really cool.
Thanksgiving dinner, like Christmas season hit, and we were just waiting for it. And then we knew every word to every song, and it was just like such a big deal for our family. And so I felt like even with my kids today, like I want to create those kind of soundtracks for them, where they can remember those moments and be excited when, oh, it's summer, so we get to start like playing the summer playlist.
Yeah.
And then what are songs that we are into now that we can add that are going to fit well with that?
So now going back to the cassette for a second.
Yeah.
Like how was it something where every year it was the same one, or because I know like for us we had like a CD, like I could make cassettes, but I could play CDs like in there. So like for your dad, was it something where he's just like waiting until it comes on the radio and he's like recording, but also Christmas music isn't on? So how is he like creating that?
Yeah, I think it was the same one every year. And so
Okay.
it's like he made it once off of like, he had the dual cassette
Yeah.
thing, and so he would hit play on one and then record on the other. It used to be so
Okay.
complicated to make mixtapes.
That's why I was like, hey, I think we need to pause, because I feel like anyone under like 25 years old is going to be like, yeah, like my dad makes a playlist too. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but you don't understand. Like right now I could make a playlist here. Whereas like 30, whatever years ago, it would have been, hey, Joel, give me a couple of weeks. I've got to wait till I catch them on the radio.
It's the whole, when I was a kid, we had to walk 5 miles in the snow to get to school. Yeah, it's like everything was way more complicated back in the day. And so you really had to like care about something to invest the time and energy into like figuring it out and making it. And so, yeah, but I think for us, like my dad, there were like things that I loved musically that I learned from him. Like my dad was a big Elvis fan and Johnny Cash fan, and so there are a lot of takeaways for me there. But my dad was also like really into Southern gospel, and so he actually sang in a gospel quartet, and so so in that sense, like he was a little bit of a musician himself. And then my sisters were like really into like, or at least I remember, Michael Jackson, and so kind of coming on board of that in that era. And so it's just kind of like music always felt like it was everywhere when I was growing up, which is cool. So how then did the specific idea of Christian music kind of make an entry point into your life?
We would like sing hymns at church, and at school we would sing like songs. But I went to one of those private schools that was like Toby Mac's like the devil type of place. And so like we didn't really get any exposure to that until my mom, she stopped listening to like our local, like not local, but like I guess like the pop radio station, because she was kind of like, I don't think my kids should be listening to this like on the way to school or whatever. I think that was the reason. So we started listening to like the Christian music station. And so we started listening to that, and then she bought the like Wow hits. So we'd get those every year.
Yeah.
So I remember every day waking up to, I think it was the Wow hits 2005. So I just vividly remember every morning I would wake up, and it was like Matthew West was on there, but also it was like Stacy, like Orico was on there,
Yeah.
Toby Mac. So I remember just like every day waking up to like Third Day or Toby Mac or whoever. So that was kind of like our first like big push into it, was just Wow hits, and then our like our radio station on the way to school and all. And so yeah, that was the first idea. Is kind of just this, I say surface level, I'm not trying to be like offensive, but it's the stuff that you would hear. It's like K-Love today. Like you're not gonna have like certain, your Starflyer 59 is not gonna be on K-Love, so it's kind of a like our version of K-Love growing up, where you got a lot of those types of bands and all.
Yeah, I think really similar for me too. I mean, obviously like I said, my dad was really into Southern gospel, and so in that sense, like Christian music was a part of the soundtrack of our house. But the stuff that I first started getting into was a lot of the major CCM stuff, but like a decade earlier than you, right?
Yeah.
So, because I'm probably, I don't even know how much older I am than you, but like a decade older. And so I remember it was like Michael W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, For Him, Al Denson, Clay Cross, these like CCM artists, not really pushing the boundaries really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably argue that Michael W. Smith was doing that in some ways, but cassette tapes. Like I just started buying or borrowing from my sisters, even cassette tapes of these artists, making my own mixtapes and stuff like that early on. And so for me, that's like it started in the same place, just earlier, like kind of like the really mainstream kind of CCM stuff. Where for you then did that transition more into more of like the alternative or rock or indie like scene of Christian music?
Yeah, I remember I bought Toby Mac's Welcome to Diverse City.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I started listening to it. I remember turning it off because at that point, rap was just, oh, it's, and I was like, I thought this guy was a Christian artist. In my mind, I'm like, oh, he's singing rap. So I know it has to have like this certain content.
Yeah.
So I remember being like, oh my gosh, my mom's going to be upset with me because like, she's going to be like, why did you buy this? And, so he was like that first jump into like, oh wow, this is like I've never really listened to like rap that's okay. I've never really listened to like rock because it was just kind of like my family like pop like not pop rock like classic rock was really big for them. But for me, it's like I never really like clicked with it, and so Toby Mac comes along and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I think the first like album that kind of like was this just like this changes everything was John Rubin's Boy versus the Cynic. And that whole album is this concept album where he just pretty much put together an entire album for very like happy optimistic then just very like pessimistic, and then that album is a like merging of the two. So it's like half the tracks are very much like, hey, things get better, we're good, we're happy, let's party. And then the other half is just like, oh man, like this is corrupt, like pastors are stealing money from people. And at the end, the final track is just this like, how can we be at a place where both of these exist? Like we can't or we don't need to live in a place where we're leaning toward one or the other. And it was the first time that I listened and was like, I feel heard by an album.
Yeah.
And then I think that next jump was probably a Songs from the Penalty Box by Tooth and Nail.
Yeah.
And because that CD introduced me to Starflyer 59, Children 18-3, Me Without You, Joan Zeta, Showbread. Like there's probably 10 to 12 bands that I like started following just because of that album. And so that was probably like the first album that was like wow, but then the first one that kind of made me branch more into this like alternative and like punk side of Christian music.
Yeah, I remember in like middle school that I think I've mentioned this before, but at youth camp Petra played and I was like, whoa, this is so cool. Just like going to my first rock concert and being exposed to that. But like that quickly like transformed from there into like a lot of the more like mainstream like DC Talk and Audio Adrenaline, Newsboys, that kind of stuff, that world kind of entering in. And so I remember a lot of that happening. I remember buying like New Thing by DC Talk on cassette. And I still remember walking into the bookstore, Christian books, it was Family Christian Stores, and picking up that cassette tape. And then I remember going and like sitting in the driveway at my house in my mom's car with it like in the cassette player and like turning it up. And, but yeah, it was that kind of experience for me that like allowed me to experience some of that stuff in a unique way. And then like I think it probably for me too was, as I think about it, probably some of those like those mixtapes, the CDs, the samplers that labels were putting out.
Yeah.
Where I just wanted to experience some different artists. I remember being really into a lot of what I was hearing in secular radio, right? Like the first time I heard Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, I was like, man, the first time I heard When I Come Around by Green Day, like I remember those moments. And so I remember buying one day because I saw on one of those, if you like this, then you'll like, I remember seeing if you like Green Day, then you'll like MXPX. And only their first record, Poconacha, was out. And so I picked it up and I was like, man, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Because it actually does sound like that.
Yeah.
And then that like opened up a world to me of Songs from the Penalty Box and buying those samplers. And then another one of my favorite labels is 5 Minute Walk. And so they had their own samplers that
Yeah.
they put out there called Take Time to Listen. And so I started buying those up, and that just opened my world up to all different kinds of stuff, from NMXPX to a band like Five Iron Frenzy. And all that stuff just really captured my heart
Yeah.
in a lot of ways that like even the mainstream stuff wasn't doing.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot more authenticity and like realness to what was going on. And so and I think all that like that led me to be like, oh, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And so like I started my own band, and we were terrible for like such a long time, and finally got to where we were okay, and got to do that for a little bit and experience a different side of it. But yeah, it was fun just watching the progression happen in my life. So with you, like, obviously that's kind of where things started, but like, what is kind of the journey been like over time with Christian music? We've talked a little bit about that, but like, what's the journey felt like for you?
Oh, it's all been good. All perfect. Really nothing negative. Really boring answer. No, for me, so like I said, whenever I first started finding people like, and like John Rubin stands out, him, House of Heroes, then like maybe Me Without You. They were the first bands that I felt like, I'm like, this is incredible. Like, I feel heard. I feel like these people are talking about stuff that like I feel, and just stuff like the Boy vs. the Cynic album. I remember House of Heroes, the first time I heard The End Is Not the End. Like, I remember just thinking, man, it's easy to sit down and make an album about like breakups or whatever, or even like worship songs. It's easy because I feel like worship music has gotten better, because at that time it was kind of just let's take an old hymn and just slap on like a chorus to it.
Yeah.
And but I remember like being like, this is a whole album about World War II, and it's about people who are like good people, bad people. It's just here's 15, 16 stories or whatever. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, this is something that not just anyone could make this, and like, especially make it good. So for me, it was so cool to feel heard and be like, man, this motivates me, that as a creator, like if I'm going to be a Christian and I'm going to create, why would I not create like good stuff? Like, you don't just sit there and see like the sun or the earth or whatever and be like, yeah, Jesus was like, well, I'm kind of focused on like creating all these dogs over here, so the sun, I'll just like, I don't know, like he's not handing it to an angel and just saying, hey, I don't know, I can't decide which shade of yellow I want, or whatever. And so for me, like, I was like, man, this is so cool. Like, I want to be like this. I can be a Christian. I can do cool stuff. It was kind of the same way. I remember being at summer camp, and I told people that the best like ministry tool I ever had was professionally wrestling t-shirts. And because there was kids there that like, they didn't listen to Christian music or like NASCAR, but they watched wrestling.
Yeah.
And I would show up and they would be like, wait, you do that? And I was like, well, yeah, like, this wrestler is a Christian or that. And even like music, it became a thing where they liked their music, and it was, how can I introduce them to bands that it's not a drop in quality? Because I don't want them to say like, hey, I know that like you're 10 years old and you're listening to like 50 Cent or whatever, but like, maybe you shouldn't be listening to that at like 10 years old. But it's not just, oh, here's a campy Christian artist. Instead, it's like, hey, here's an artist that their stuff is just as good, but it's not gonna have like the stuff that you maybe shouldn't be listening to.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm tiptoeing around that. I feel like there's no one listening to this that's going to be like, I'm offended that Brandon said he shouldn't. Your kids should not be listening to like that. But and it took a turn for me that, like I said, I was so excited, thinking, man, I want to be like this. I'm going to be this kind of person. And then you start realizing that all those people I listed, they don't get any type of recognition. Like, they don't get the Dove Awards. They don't get invited to, like any Christian awards. They don't get played on Christian music. It's like you keep John Rubin on this little like side stage over here because it's like, well, there's other artists. Every song is about like Jesus, or it's about how church is cool. Or it's like House of Heroes. It's like, that's like, so like we would celebrate you if all these songs was about like Jesus as a soldier or something, and like Me Without You is their their whole other thing. And so for me, I went through this phase where it was just like, just really sad to be like, oh, so it's like if you want to be recognized or whatever, you got to, you have to almost like sell out or stop being creative. So it's like if you're going to, like work at a church even, it's like, well, you got to fit into this mold because you can't mention whatever. And I mean, like I remember telling Jordan even before I started working like at our church, this was probably a month or two beforehand. So it probably been right before I even applied for here. I remember being like, I'm never going to work at a church again because like the moment you do, like, it's like, I can't watch NASCAR because here's all the rules. And then music wise, it's like, well, you can't really like listen to like a Me Without You because some of those songs are kind of like, is it Christian? Is it not? Is it attacking the church? Is it? And it's like me just thinking, man, I don't want to have this label that, or like even Christian music. If you tell people, I listen to Christian music or podcasts like this, they probably think, okay, so you guys are just going to cover all of the new stuff, or it's like, we were listening to K-Love the other day. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's like this, I just started finding this gate that was like, okay, if you give up your originality and like questioning stuff, you can be let in the club. And so for me, it kind of just took this like, really just, I don't want to be a part of this because none of the people I like are being recognized. So I think like for me, it took like this kind of, this is a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, I feel like, an interesting journey for me too. Because like you said, I think when I was in a Christian band and we tried to be pretty like, forward facing about that, and have there not be questions that like for us this is what this is, like we want people to know and meet Jesus. But like our music didn't fit in on like a really cut and dry like world for that, right? And so so we kind of fell in more with the guys that are a little on the outside and weren't let in those nice squeaky clean doors. But I found a lot of value there in the fact that it's okay to like stand inside the kingdom of God and be a part of the church, but also like point fingers at ourselves and say we don't have it all together and we're not perfect, and we've got a lot of things to work on and figure out. And so for me, music that was doing that just had a real weight to it, that was meaningful. And artists like Five Iron Frenzy, that it's probably, I was telling my wife the other day, just because I went on a 2-day stint of listening to nothing but Five Iron, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure Five Iron is the most Christian band ever. Like I can't think of another band that was as like forward facing about their faith and their lyrics, like just so straightforward. But at the same time, they were constantly pointing the fingers at the church and saying, we've got to do better. And I just love that. I love the willingness to like take that on and always say, we are a community of people together, but how can we be better? Let's not sweep stuff under the rug. Like, let's deal with the realities that are there, and press deeper into what it really means to like walk with Jesus. And so because of that, I feel like I got pretty cynical for a while with like standard CCM stuff. Because there were gatekeepers to it. And it's kind of like, you do this, like you've got to mention Jesus at least 2.5 times in your song. Or like whatever. which is interesting. Like we just covered Sixpence None the Richer, and so like how can you have a song about kissing that like doesn't
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about Jesus? So that's not Christian music. And I want us in the future sometime. This would be a great conversation to like sit down and talk about what actually like what makes something Christian music,
Yeah.
and dig into that as an idea. But for me, I got a little cynical with all of that, and then at the same time, I kind of felt like that's when Christian music kind of began its decline, and it all kind of transitioned over into like what we know as like worship music.
Yeah.
And that's probably another topic for a
Yeah.
day ahead too. But yeah, so today for you, like sitting where you sit now, kind of looking back on all of that, where do you consider yourself to be? Like what when you think about this whole idea of Christian music, like where are you today with it?
Yeah, I think so the last question ended on a very like sad note. but I was like, I knew this is the next question. So like I think for me it went from being very like upset. I think it's like a having one of those like it's like Elijah. I always get him and Elisha mixed up, and I feel like it's okay that I do because like, but I remember like him being like in the cave and it being like, oh, woe is me, this is sad. What am I gonna do? And then being like, other people are out here like doing stuff. Like it's not all about you. And I think for me, I take that like annoyance and all, and it motivates me. I guess like two parts. Like it motivates me to think, okay, well, if these bands aren't being promoted, how can I help promote? Like, how can I go to people who are like me and go, hey, like, I know you're asking a lot of questions. Like, here's bands that helped me work through stuff. And then also just finding like newer bands that are doing that. Because I feel like, I don't like when people do the thing where it's like, there's no good music nowadays, or all the good music. And I'm like, no, every group, every decade has stuff that's like good and bad. Yeah. Like, we look at like people, I don't know if people would say the golden age is like the 70s or 80s of like, like rock or whatever. But it's like, yeah, you can go back and say, here's the top guys. But I feel like there's probably 10 times as many artists that you'd be like, I can't stand those guys. And so for me, I think about like, who are people nowadays that are doing that thing? And what I have found is that there are bands that are, at least in my opinion, that are like going above what's asked of them. Like I think, for instance, like a Josiah Queen, like, and it might be something where other people are like, Brandon, he's the worst example of that or whatever. But like, just having like the kids in our grade school, like seeing how much they love him or like a Forrest Frank, and then listening and going, okay, here's not a guy that's just like out here just to say, oh, I'll just write whatever and I can like make money. Like it's stuff where it feels like there's an effort being put forth. And then even like, I've mentioned them on here before, but like Gable Price and Friends, to me, they're such a good example that like they are like they're on a Christian label and all, but like not every song has to be about Jesus. So there's songs about that. And to me, what's amazing is I look at a band like that or Switchfoot, and I think back to like, me and Jordan went to music conference months ago. Not music conf. What do you call it? Not a conference. A festival.
Okay. I don't know what a music conference is.
And but like thinking, man, there's so many people here that probably would not. They're not going to be at church on Sunday, or like maybe these people have never stepped foot in church.
Yeah.
But then they see someone like a Gable Price from Friends, and they're like, "Man, that guy's cool. That guy, like, he reminds me of me." And you have those conversations. So for me, like, there's still an annoyance that it's like, I look at someone like a House of Heroes, and sometimes I think these people should like be headlining like Madison Square Garden, or whatever. But it's cool for me. Also, in a way, maybe thinking like that's what makes it so special is that if they would have gotten big, does it change music? Or does it make it to where it's like, oh, this guy's just putting this out because they feel like they have to or they're being pressured to?
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'm in a place where I love celebrating what has happened and getting to just be thankful for those bands for like just changing my life. But then also being there to like appreciate newer bands that are going to be like, like 10 years from now, there's going to be a teenager or a college student that's like Gable Price and Friends, like, change this. Or like, man, like, I hated worship music, but then like Josiah Queen showed me that like, oh, this can be like, it doesn't have to be this, like, let's say the same line 20 times or whatever. So I think for me, like, it's definitely a happier place than it was, because it's almost like instead of just sitting there and feeling sorry, it's using that cynicism to be like, okay, well, how can I help other people like myself who are searching for those bands?
Yeah, that's really good. I feel really similar. I love the fact that you mentioned like a Josiah Queen, and he's a great example of the fact that there's a lot less gatekeepers out
Yeah.
there now, right? And so you find a guy like him who is finding a lot of success in this world of Christian music, but like he doesn't have a label over him telling him, no, you've got to do it this way, or this is the only way it works, or if you want us to release your CD, like this has got to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's so refreshing and really hopeful for the future, because the music industry is a completely different animal than it was
Yeah.
10, 20 years ago. And I like the fact that today I can look back on my history with all of this, and at the points where I was pretty cynical, that I don't feel those feelings so much anymore.
Yeah,
That I
yeah.
feel like I can turn on any of those albums and find like a lot of appreciation for them, and remember how impactful that they were in my life along the way. And so I feel like, and it's probably because I'm, in my mid 40s, but I feel like a lot of nostalgia for the stuff that's behind.
Yeah.
But also like really excited for the stuff that's ahead. And I love seeing the artists that are coming out and doing their own thing, that they really get to express who they are in a meaningful way, and that there are less restraints for them. And I just can't wait to see like what stories get to be told, because I believe that we are on the cutting edge of seeing God use music meaningful in our culture again. And I think it's a big reason for us, like why we wanted to step into doing this, of saying, how do we look backwards with a lot of love for what's behind, but how can we create some momentum for what's happening now at the same time? And because we realize how impactful this music was on us back in the day. And I want that same thing for my kids. My kids that are 12 and 10 right now, I want them to find something that they can just fall in love with musically, that's going to help guide and transform them as they kind of step into the future. So I think that's a fun thing about getting to do this, and that's the journey that we want to invite you guys, our listeners, onto with us. Is how can we look back with a lot of love, but look forward with a lot of hope for what's to come. So I'm excited to kind of dig into that more and more over time. But right now, it's time for the lyric of the week.
It's time for the lyric of the it's time.
Brandon, I think you have a lyric for us today.
Yeah, so today's lyric comes from Starflyer 59's album Dial M. It's from their song Taxi, and it goes, late walks make my mind overwork, so 15 has never been the cure of a broken back, a broken neck, a broken heart, a broken dream.
I love Dial M. It is one of my favorite Starflyer records, and so that's one that I've enjoyed listening to a lot lately, and that's a great tune. I appreciate you bringing that to us today. Yeah. Since our cast is inspired by Starflyer, when we find random weeks like this where we're not covering a specific album, you will find that we are talking about Starflyer lyrics. So That's a lot of fun. I think that kind of brings us to a wrap. You have anything that you want to kind of closing thoughts on any of this?
No, I think it's I think stuff like this was really cool. And I think going back to the cynicism, stuff like this podcast, I think it's awesome to get to have these conversations because there are going to be albums down the road that I feel like there's going to be eventually that one day where one of us is, this is 5 stars, this is Mount Rushmore greatest CDs ever, and the other one's going to go, man, this is barely a 2. But I think that it just teaches you to have that respectful like look and like tone and be like, hey, like I didn't care for this, but hey, it affected you. And I think, like you said, looking back, there's bands that I think I are very cheesy. I don't care for them, but I know that they're the reason why other people had their life changed, or maybe it's they became a better father, or they got back in the church, whatever. And so sometimes I do have to step back and think that. And, I think that's what's cool about this. And I look forward to it. Hopefully on those days, I'm the one with like bringing the 2 and not the vice versa. 'Cause
We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I kind of had a closing thought as we were talking through that too. It reminded me of just the power of this music and how I believe God can use it for His kingdom. I was at last year at Furnace Fest, and one of my favorite bands, Five Iron Frenzy, was playing, and they have a song every new day, which is they've just kind of come to like end all their shows with it over the years. It's really powerful. And so they were closing with that, and I just remember it was this really cool moment. And I saw later that night somebody post on the Furnace Fest page that it's been years since I believed in Jesus, but being there in that moment and hearing that song made me want to believe again.
yeah.
And I think that's the hope that's found in all of this, and I'm thankful that we get to have these conversations and talk through these things and maybe help people engage into artists and music that they've never engaged with before, so that they can experience the hope that's found there. So you guys, if you haven't yet, can find us on the internet. We are on X at Hey Are You Pod. Facebook, our page is Hey Are You Listening? And we'd love for you to engage with us there. Have these conversations with us. That would be a lot of fun for us. But also subscribe anywhere you listen. Like, rate, review. We would love and welcome all of that. We're thankful that you're with us for this journey, and look forward to maybe even having you come and sit down and join us for one of these conversations sometime. So thankful for you guys, and we will see you next week.
Hey, are you listening?